Throughout the programme this morning, we've been talking about a new initiative from the government who will unveil a wave even of decarbonisation and energy policies. Right, this is called Powering Up Britain, and it will promote green energy and reach the UK's net zero targets by 2050. So joining us now to tell us exactly what all of this means, we've got the Energy Secretary himself. That's Grant Shapps this morning. Mr. Shapps, good morning to you.
Morning.
I've got a problem. I've got a gas boiler. What do I do?
Well, carry on using it for the time being. Probably check your flow control, make sure that the boiler's not pumping out heat that's not required, won't make your home any warmer, but that's a sensible thing to do. And for the time being, that is it. There are other options coming down the line, including heat pumps and potentially things like us mixing hydrogen into your gas boiler as well, which is not something you have to do anything about. It would just happen behind the scenes.
I understand you have a gas boiler as well, or at least you don't have a heat pump yet. What are your own plans? Because obviously you've got to practice what you preach, Mr. Shapps.
That's it. In fact, on the, I think it's the 17th of this month, anyway, coming up this month, I've got people looking to survey the house from the energy companies to see about whether heat pumps can work. And so, sort of living the dream, as it were, or I'm hoping to. We'll see what happens when they come round my house. The measures today are about 1,000 pages of different measures, all to do with our energy security, because we've been hauled over the coals by Putin's war in Ukraine. It's hit us all hard. The government has ended up paying around half of the typical energy bill this winter. The plan today is to power Britain from Britain, and all the different measures that we're going to take to make sure that can happen in the future.
It's going to cost us, isn't it?
It's both a cost and potentially a huge market. So this is something I wouldn't expect most of your viewers to know about. But there's something called carbon capture, utilisation and storage. It's a method of capturing carbon and then storing it largely under the sea, actually in the old oil and gas locations. And if we probably have the ability to store billions, if not trillions of pounds worth of other people's carbon in those locations. So you say it's going to cost us. Actually, it could be a massive market, effectively an export, like, for Britain, as big as, even bigger than oil and gas has been for us since the 70s.
Except there were two key words. Forgive me, there were two key words used there, probably and could be, which suggests that this is a bit of a gamble. And indeed, a lot of experts are warning that this isn't even proven technology that you are backing here, and it might not work out.
So we're putting £20 billion into that. Today I'm announcing the locations where those programmes are going to get going. But we know that you can actually do this. It's technically possible to do. Yes, there are lots of practical implications of doing it, but it could be a market worth trillions of pounds. Put this into perspective, we've got space to store about 78 billion tonnes of carbon, and that would be enough for the whole of Europe's carbon for 250 years. That could bring in a lot of money to the UK. So yes, it's not that you're absolutely right. There's development to go on this. A bit like where I am today at the UK Fusion Centre. I'm at Asylum, where fusion could be one of the future solutions to our energy security. Now, you're right, we're not there yet, but if we can get there, and Britain has a leading role in this, then we can bring energy security to every single one of your viewers, and we'll never have a Putin hold us to energy ransom again.
Energy Secretary, what does that mean, though? So say I'm head of Centrica, which used to be known as British Gas or Phoenix Gas or one of the many gas companies around the country. If I'm listening to you today, am I thinking my days are numbered in this industry, this company's days are numbered?
Well, they're going to have to turn into an energy company rather than a gas company, but actually someone like Centrica's, that's what they're already doing. They're already on that path. Because today we're also announcing hydrogen as a power source, effectively, £240 million into that particular project. They'll be interested in things like carbon capture, as I was just talking about. And they will progressively look to turn themselves into a broader energy company rather than being that traditional gas company, which is what we asked.
What about Alok Sharma in all of this? Booted out of the cabinet under Rishi Sunak. Of course, he was responsible, wasn't he, for seeing through COP27. Rishi Sunak wasn't that fussed about going to COP28, but he did kind of under duress at the last minute go. And Alok Sharma this morning being quoted as saying that these plans lack a bazooka moment.
Well, these plans are part of a sort of progressive thing. We've already said as a country, and actually signed a law, we have to get to net zero by the year 2050. And one of the other things in the thousands of pages today set out is where we are on that journey through to net zero. I want to do it in a way that provides energy security. I see that as the flip side of the same coin. Alok, of course, Alok Sharma did a brilliant job of that at COP26. That was the one in Scotland a couple of years ago. And what that did was to set us on that path. Now, Britain, the UK, is much further along that line than many other nations. We've decarbonised more than any other industrialised nation whilst growing the economy. The plans today set out how we're going to continue to do that, and it really builds on the shoulders of much of his work. I spoke to him about this programme a couple of days ago, and sort of briefed him on some of what's coming up. And as I say, no country in the world has done more or gone further on this. No industrialised country, for example, we have more wind power than any other European nation. You have the biggest wind wind farms in the world, and the second and the third, and we're building the fourth biggest. So we're well down this track.
What are you doing about building asylum centres for the refugees? We talked about the various army bases around the country. All of that still falls way short of being able to house the overall number. Barges, are we going to get barges or not? That seemed to be dangled in front of us yesterday. Not much talk about it after that.
Well, look, we do want to make sure that we resolve this. I was briefly Home Secretary. I know the extent of the issues that we're dealing with here. And the first thing we want to do, by the way, is stop the illegal trade in people across the channel, because that is the thing which is feeding.
Any barges?
And then in terms of accommodation, it's clearly not appropriate long term to have people in hotels. We've got to bring that to an end. So, as you said, we'll use both army bases to do that, and we'll look at other options as well. We think that there are.
And would that include barges?
Well, we have to wait for all of the detail from the Home Secretary and the Immigration Minister. But we are looking to make sure that once and for all we solve this. A, stop the illegal trade, and I'm afraid the opposition are voting against the bill that stops people being trafficked, which I think is absolutely appalling. And B, make sure that we have accommodation far more appropriate than using hotels, which is not the right way to go at all.
Just finally, before we let you go, a big moment with President Biden flying into Northern Ireland next week. And Rishi Sunak has been very diplomatic and avoided any sort of criticism of the Biden administration. But it hasn't stopped the Chancellor writing in the Times today. He's upset about what he's called protectionism when it comes to green innovation, sort of things that you're outlining today, suggestions that we want to do, be world leaders. Is he right? Are the Americans doing anything wrong?
Well, we all agree it's good that the Americans have finally, these days, got into kind of this whole thing. I was just describing how we've decarbonised more than anyone else. It makes it a big market with the Americans involved, so there are export opportunities for us. What we don't want to see is, that just coming from essentially tax bungs being given. What we want to do is have a much fairer system where the world properly works together and indeed competes with each other. So yesterday I was discussing this with John Kerry, who is Biden's climate expert in London, and we were discussing cooperation on that front. Yes, we do have some concerns, as the Chancellor has outlined today, but yes, we also think this is a big opportunity, for example, for all the British companies to sell our services and our skills and our technology to America now that they're finally properly involved in this. But make no mistake, we've been investing for 10 years and a lot more than the US has. The plan today, Powering Up Britain, outlines how we're going to carry on doing that and really taking a lead in this area.
Grant Shapps, Energy Secretary, we appreciate your time this morning. Thank you very much indeed.
You're welcome.